Fitzgeralds. So for a little bit of backstory on Amy's piece, she has decided to do her piece on the Fitzgeralds, meaning Zelda Fitzgerald and F. Scott Fitzgerald, who is the author of The Great Gatsby. To give a little bit of context on them, Zelda Fitzgerald was a Southern belle from Montgomery, Alabama. She was the daughter of a judge, and she was the most sought after woman in Montgomery. Scott was stationed in Montgomery, Alabama in 1918, where he met Zelda at a club dance, a club party. And this is where the kind of love story started, where he would see her when he was stationed over there. When the war had finished, he went back to New York to be an author and wrote his first story, This Side of Paradise, which was based on his love story with Zelda. When that took off, he pulled her out of Montgomery and took her over to New York and gave her a completely change of lifestyle. They ended up spending all of their money on drinking, partying, clothes, things they didn't really need, and they ended up going bankrupt until he kind of wrote his next book after that, which I believe was The Great Gatsby. When they were in when they were in Switzerland on a night, Zelda started to go a little bit loopy, and they ended up putting her in a psychiatric ward in Switzerland. During this time, her and Scott were still together. They were still writing love stories to each other, love letters to each other, and he was still writing for her. All of his stories based in his lifetime was on the love between him and Zelda, which you can kind of tell from how it went from young puppy love to sad, sad stories, ending with the last typhoon, just before his death. She came out of psychiatric ward and they continued having their love story. They had a daughter called Scotty, and she was put back in an asylum in Alabama when she went back to Montgomery. They would still write to each other, but also this time Scott then moved to moved to Hollywood to get money from his books to make movies out of them, where he met Sheila Graham, who was star in most of his movies. And at this point he continued a relationship with her, even though his wife was in the psychiatric hospital. They would still continue writing love letters to each other. A lot of them Amy used for her piece. One specifically that she used was the letter Shay reads right at the start of her piece, where she speaks from Zelda's point of view to Scott. That was the last letter Zelda wrote to Scott before her tragic death, and whilst he was actually past himself.